Since my early childhood, I used to draw house interiors, which I later constructed with Lego, clay, and other materials. It was my favorite game, and so, in 1974, when the Turkish troops forced us to abandon my family house, the only thing I carried with me, as we believed we would soon return, was the drawing of the house. Since then, both the notion of habitation and later, the tendency to design and construct architectural spaces, function as therapeutic exercises in my installations. My current house is a small flat on the 6th floor of a typical Athenian apartment building. It looks like a replica of Le Corbusier's little house. No matter how small your house may be, you should understand that the essential component should include a museum and a gym, and that these rooms occupy positions of great importance. By means of a puzzling and obscure device called the social gym, which is in a continuous state of mutation, I suggest that mechanisms of resistance should be built into the utopian world of art. Contested territories are the hypothetical settings into which the social gym is placed, a Palestinian refugee camp in the Gaza Strip, for example, or outposts in Ireland and Cyprus, while its real basis is, in fact, a special room located in my home and called the Rumbling or Rambling Museum. The structural elements of this room are themselves in a state of constant transformation and displacement, serving as the basis for installations. Thus, elements of the museum, including part of the roofing, floor, and picture window, perform a dual service when they are transposed to another site in a public place, museum or exhibition space, and pressed into service as parts of a form of a mobile, nomadic museum. The idea of having a museum in my own place took a hold on my mind after witnessing a number of serious incidents in the dead zone, or buffer zone, between the Turkish and Greek Cypriot communities in Cyprus. I thought that any form of artistic activity would be infinitely preferable to a bloody conflict, and that the buffer zone could provide the perfect location for this. In practice, the authorities were bound to get in the way. Then, in my frustration at my inability to do anything along the so-called Green Line, I hit on the idea of a rambling museum, which would be based in my home, but would be capable of traveling all over the world, especially to contested territories, thanks to advances in electronic media. In keeping with its nomadic ideals, the museum defines its activities in terms of constant displacement, successive modification, and endless variety. The virtual 3D space of a social gym provides a mobile alternative to the original museum. Whilst the museum itself crops up in a variety of alternative spaces, such as military vehicles, containers, suburban air raid shelters, and military hideouts. In 1990, when I first moved into this apartment, the view of the surrounding decadent lower middle-class buildings was hopelessly revolting, and what was worse, it completely hid the view of the Parthenon. Since I could not, of course, change the view itself, I thought of setting it in a special frame through which I could confront it, hoping that in this way it would become somewhat interesting. So I constructed the facade of the rambling museum in imitation of one of the glass partitions in the Barcelona pavilion, creating a perfect Bauhaus cornice to frame the ugliness of a decaying neighborhood, such as mine. This pavilion was my favorite building, and I had become completely absorbed in the processes that had been used in 1986 to make a faithful reconstruction of the 1929 original, which had long since been demolished. The replica idea of a masterpiece like that was intriguing indeed. From 1990 on, this glass facade of the Rambling Museum provided the framework for many of the museum's projects, until, in 1996, I replaced it with a new one, which insinuates a somewhat folkloric design into the suburban milieu.
That shot there, like that, that's gorgeous.
Social gym number 32, exercise on extending the app, the Outlook machine. As the elevator ascended to the top floors, I thought that from moment to moment I would be launched into space, the then mayor of New York said with pride in his speech inaugurating the Empire State Building. In 1929, the year of the terrible economic crash of Wall Street, when New Yorkers set out to erect that building, the tallest in the world, the construction works of the famous Barcelona pavilion of Mies van der Rohe had been completed, while in the Soviet superpower, the Katyn monument from the Third International aspired to surpass the Empire State Building by double its height. My name is Nicos Charalambidis, and I welcome you to the Outlook machine. Social gym number 32, exercise on extending the app, the Outlook machine. As the elevator ascended to the top floors, I thought that from moment to moment I would be launched into space, the then mayor of New York said with pride in his speech inaugurating the Empire State Building. In 1929, the year of the terrible economic crash of Wall Street, when New Yorkers set out to erect that building, the tallest in the world, the construction works of the famous Barcelona pavilion of Mies van der Rohe had been completed. In 2003, for the necessities of a project for Venice Biennale, I produced stains of decay and oxidation effects, using mostly sulfuric acids, on that facade just to donate them later to Mies van der Rohe's pavilion.
As director of the glass partition of Barcelona Pavilion, we keep it its dimensions of morphology. This was my favorite building, and I have become completely absorbed with the processes which had been used in 1986 to make a faithful reconstruction of the 1929 original, which had long since been demolished. So I thought that it would be the perfect Bauhaus showroom dome to frame the ugliness of a decadent neighborhood such as mine. The partitions at my edition of Barcelona Pavilion, we keep it its dimensions of morphology. This was my favorite building, and I have become completely absorbed with the processes which had been used in 1986 to make a faithful reconstruction of the 1929 original, which had long since been demolished. So I thought that it would be the perfect Bauhaus showroom dome to frame the ugliness of a decadent neighborhood such as mine. The partitions at Mies van der Rohe inserted at any structural function in mind, and especially twisted freestanding orange wall in the centre, to represent to me an allegorical comparison with the uselessness and absurdity of the dividing wall of Cyprus. From 1990 on, I am currently engaged in reproducing these states of decay in the facade of the Roman Museum in my house. It is a painstaking process. You have to prime the surface and apply two coats of special instance time-based coating. After you allow it to dry for 12 hours, more of the infant water solution, a special product that produces an oxidation effect, is applied. Subsequent rust develops over a period of several hours. To heighten the effect, I additionally use sulfuric acid. I intended to make all these stains to Mies van der Rohe's pavilion, which in contrast is very well preserved. Not only is it my way of creating Mies architecture, but it is also a contribution of kind to biological and chemical warfare.
Under the black carpet of the central room, I installed a wooden base, which contains a multifunctional piece of domestic equipment, transforming the pavilion from a museum space to an everyday living room. I interpreted the partitions that Mies van der Rohe had inserted in that pavilion without any structural function in mind, and especially the freestanding onyx wall in the center, as an allegory of the uselessness and absurdity of the dividing wall in Cyprus. Focusing on this wall, I finally decided to pull it down. Projects like that and many other performances take place, initially, inside my domestic museum, and are subsequently transferred into other spaces after manipulation by means of a special montage technique, the blue screen prop. As you may realize, my current house is like a complicated multiplex. My tendency to transfer its load-bearing elements and changing the structure of the house perpetually is like a spell, a therapeutic procedure that exercises the trauma of a disassembled country. The house is converted into allegory, while simultaneously the denial of the very sense of the notion of estia, or home, underlies it. It is a flowing house of a refugee, a nomad, declaring subconsciously a fear to own a house. I have a conviction that plain houses hide tragedies.